One rainy night, a routine bust turned into a nightmare. My career, my freedom, and my very identity were meticulously dismantled by a powerful man who refused to let the truth get in his way. The rain wasn't just falling. It was attacking the city. Each drop hit the windshield of my patrol car like a tiny silver bullet, distorting the neon signs of the pawn shops and liquor stores into blurry, bleeding colors. It was 2 a.m. on a Tuesday, the hour when the city's ghosts come out to play. 15 years on the force teaches you to read the streets, to feel the rhythm of the night. And tonight, the rhythm was off. I was cruising down Kessler Avenue, the part of town respectable people lock their car doors for. It's a ghost town after midnight, except for the shadows that flicker in alleyways. That's when I saw it. A brand new BMW, the kind of car that costs more than my house, parked awkwardly half on the curb. Its pristine white paint job was like a pearl in a pigsty. It screamed, out of place, and in my line of work, out of place is just another word for trouble. I killed my headlights and coasted to a stop a half-block away, pulling out my binoculars. Through the rain-streaked glass, I saw two figures huddled near the car. One was a young woman, probably college-aged, dressed in clothes that were way too expensive for this neighborhood. The other was a man, wiry and fidgety, his eyes darting around like trapped birds. He looked like every low-level dealer I'd ever busted. My gut, the partner that's never let me down, tightened into a cold knot. I watched as she opened her designer purse and pulled out a small, thick envelope. He took it, and in return, passed her a small, dark object. A classic hand-to-hand. My heart rate kicked up a notch. This was it. The kind of simple, by-the-book bust that looks good on a report. I radioed in my position and my intent to investigate a suspected narcotics transaction, then slipped out of my car. The rain immediately soaked through my jacket, cold and unwelcome. I kept to the shadows, my hand resting on the reassuring weight of my Glock. As I got closer, I could hear their voices, hushed and urgent. "Are you sure this is all of it?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. Yeah, it's all there. Now just go," the man hissed, stuffing the envelope into his jacket. That was my cue. I stepped out from behind a dumpster, my flashlight beam cutting through the darkness and pinning them in its glare. "Police! Freeze! Let me see your hands!" The dealer didn't hesitate. He spun around and bolted down the alley, disappearing into the labyrinth of overflowing trash cans and fire escapes. I let him go. He was the small fish. She was the one driving the six-figure car, the one with the money. She was the prize. The girl gasped, shielding her eyes from the light. She was frozen in place, a deer in the headlights. "Hands! Now!" I commanded, my voice hard as asphalt. She slowly, shakily started to raise them, but then she stopped. Her eyes narrowed, and a flicker of defiance, of arrogance, crossed her face. Her hand, instead of going all the way up, darted back towards her purse. My training took over. Every instinct, every nightmare scenario from the academy screamed in my head. A hand moving towards a concealed space is a hand moving towards a weapon. There is no room for error. There are no second chances. "Don't do it! Show me your hands!" I yelled, my voice cracking with adrenaline. She ignored me, her fingers fumbling with the clasp of her purse. In that split second, I made the decision that would end my career and shatter my life. I drew my weapon. The click of the safety coming off was deafening in the sudden silence of the alley. I aimed center mass, my sights fixed on her chest. "I will say it one more time," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Take your hand off the bag." Her eyes widened in genuine terror now, the arrogance gone, replaced by the primal fear of someone staring down the barrel of a gun. "You don't understand," she stammered. "Oh, I understand perfectly," I shot back. "You're in a bad part of town, buying drugs, and now you're making a very stupid mistake." "My father will ruin you!" she cried out, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "Do you have any idea who he is?" I almost laughed. The oldest line in the book. I'd heard it from drunk councilmen, belligerent lawyers' sons, and every other entitled punk who thought their family name was a get-out-of-jail-free card. "I don't care if your father is the Pope," I snarled. "Right now he can't stop the bullet." That's when the squeal of tires cut through the night. Not my backup. The sound was wrong. Two black SUVs, the kind used by federal agents, tore around the corner and screeched to a halt, their high beams flooding the alley and blinding me. Men in dark suits, not police uniforms, jumped out, weapons already drawn. For a terrifying second, I thought they were with the dealer. A commanding voice boomed from the lead vehicle, amplified by a loudspeaker. "Officer, stand down! Put your weapon on the ground! Now!" My blood ran cold. This wasn't a bust anymore. This was something else entirely. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. Confused, but knowing I was outgunned, I slowly lowered my Glock, placing it on the wet pavement. The men in suits swarmed the girl, not to arrest her, but to shield her, checking if she was okay. The passenger door of the lead SUV opened. The man who stepped out wasn't my captain. It was a face I'd only ever seen on television, standing next to the governor during press conferences. It was Attorney General Robert Thorne, and the look he gave me as he stared at my gun on the ground, then at his trembling daughter, wasn't one of authority. It was a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. "You're done," he whispered, his voice dangerously low as he walked past me. "You just aimed a gun at my daughter. Your life as you know it is over." The world warped into a sickening, slow-motion ballet. The men in suits moved with a fluid, terrifying efficiency, creating a human wall around the girl. My own backup, a single patrol car, finally arrived, its blue and red lights painting the scene in frantic strokes of color. But they were waved off, kept at a distance by one of the suits with a curt gesture. I was an island, surrounded by a hostile sea. They didn't even bother to cuff me. They just took my service weapon and my radio, and one of them, a man with a jaw so tight it looked like it could crack granite, simply said, "Stay put." Attorney General Thorne was huddled with his daughter, whose name I now knew was Amelia. The terrified act had vanished completely. She was speaking in low, rapid tones, gesturing back towards me. Thorne never took his eyes off me. It was a predator's stare, promising pain. After a few minutes, he walked back over, his expensive shoes splashing in the grimy puddles. "Internal Affairs will be waiting for you at the precinct," he said, his voice a low growl. "You will give them a full statement. You will tell them how you, a veteran officer, somehow mistook my daughter, a straight-A pre-med student whose car had broken down for a criminal. You will explain why you chose to terrorize her with a deadly weapon when she was simply reaching for her phone to call for a tow." My jaw dropped. Her car wasn't broken down. I watched the whole thing, the exchange, the envelope of cash. "There was no cash," he cut me off, his voice like ice. "She was giving a classmate who had stopped to help her $20 for gas. And in return, he gave her a piece of paper with the number for his mechanic. That is the official story. That is the only story. Do you understand me, officer?" I felt a dizzying sense of vertigo, like the whole city had just tilted on its axis. He had fabricated an entire reality in the span of 5 minutes, a reality so absurd it was insulting. But the way he said it, with the full weight of his office behind him, I knew it didn't matter what I saw. It only mattered what he said happened. The ride back to the precinct was the longest of my life. I wasn't in custody, but I was a prisoner all the same, sitting in the passenger seat of my own car, driven by a stone-faced sergeant I'd never seen before. When we arrived, the silence in the bullpen was deafening. Every head turned, and then quickly turned away. Cops I'd known for years, men I'd trusted with my life, suddenly found their paperwork intensely interesting. I was a leper, a ghost. My captain, Miller, met me at the door to his office. He looked exhausted. "Frank, what in God's name happened out there?" I told him everything, exactly as I saw it. The BMW, the dealer, the hand-to-hand, the girl reaching for her purse. As I spoke, the color drained from his face. When I finished, he just sank into his chair and rubbed his temples. "Frank, his daughter's purse contained an insulin pen. She's a type 1 diabetic. That's what she was reaching for," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Her blood sugar was low. She was disoriented. That's the story from the AG's office. And they have a paramedics report from the scene to back it up." "That's a lie. They're railroading me, Captain." "It doesn't matter if it's a lie," he snapped, his voice cracking. "It's Robert Thorne. He wants your badge, Frank. And if he wants it, he's going to get it. I have IA investigators and 2 assistant attorney generals in conference room B. They're treating this as an attempted extrajudicial killing. My hands are tied. I was suspended indefinitely, effective immediately. I placed my badge on his desk. The piece of polished metal, the symbol of my entire adult life, slid across the wood and came to a stop. It had never felt so heavy. I went home to my empty apartment, the city lights outside my window seeming dimmer than usual. I couldn't sleep. I just sat there, the AG's threat echoing in my mind. Your life as you know it is over. It felt prophetic. The phone rang once. It was my union rep, telling me not to talk to anyone and that he was trying to get a handle on the situation, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. The knock came just as the first grey light of dawn began to creep over the skyline. I thought it might be the rep. I opened the door, and my stomach plummeted to the floor. Standing there were two uniforms from my own precinct, O'Malley and Simmons. They weren't there to offer support. Their faces were grim, and Simmons was holding a warrant. "Frank," O'Malley said, unable to meet my eyes. "You're under arrest." A bitter, humorless laugh escaped my lips. "Let me guess. Assault with a deadly weapon? Reckless endangerment?" Simmons shook his head slowly, a look of genuine pity on his face. "Worse," he said. "They impounded your patrol car for evidence. Forensics just finished with it. Frank, they found 3 kilos of heroin hidden in a compartment in your trunk. The world didn't just tilt anymore. It shattered. 3 kilos of heroin. It was a death sentence for a cop. A career-ending, life-destroying frame job so blatant, so utterly complete, that it was almost a work of art. The ride to the jail, the one where I had brought hundreds of criminals, was surreal. O'Malley and Simmons were silent, the air thick with unspoken apologies and the stench of betrayal. I didn't fight. I didn't say a word. I just let the cold reality wash over me. Attorney General Robert Thorne wasn't just ruining my life. He was erasing it. I was put in protective custody, a lonely cell away from the general population. The guys I'd put away would have killed for a chance at the cop who landed in their territory. My union lawyer, a harried man named Dave, was good, but he was out of his depth. "Frank, this is a fortress," he said, sliding a folder of discovery documents through the slot in the glass. "They've got the drugs from your car, the forensics report with your prints all over the trunk, and the AG's daughter is their star witness. They're painting you as a dirty cop who panicked during a shakedown. My prints are all over the trunk because it's my car, Dave. This is a setup." "I know. You know. But a jury?" He sighed, shaking his head. "We can't prove it." Days bled into a week. The media had a field day. I was the villain, the rogue cop who terrorized a sick, innocent young woman. Thorne played the part of the concerned father and righteous public servant perfectly. I watched him on the small television in my cell, his face a mask of solemn integrity as he promised to root out corruption wherever he found it. My own department, my own brothers in blue, issued a statement condemning my actions. I was utterly alone. But Thorne had made one mistake. He assumed I was just a street cop, a dumb grunt with a gun and a pension plan. He didn't know that for 15 years my partner wasn't just my gut. It was a tiny, high-definition button camera sewn into my uniform tie. It was technically against regulations. A little personal insurance policy I'd started using after a suspect lied on the stand, and almost cost me my job years ago. I never turned it off. The footage uploaded automatically to a secure, private cloud server the moment my car re-entered the precinct's geo-fence. From my one phone call, I hadn't called my lawyer again. I called Sarah, a tech-savvy investigative reporter I'd occasionally leaked minor stories to over the years. The kind of reporter who lived to take down powerful men. "Sarah," I'd said, my voice low, "I have something for you. A key. But if you use it, you have to blow the door clean off its hinges." My trial was a formality, a public execution. Amelia Thorne took the stand, a picture of fragile innocence. She recounted her harrowing tale of a car breakdown, a kind classmate, and a terrifying, unhinged cop. She even dabbed at her eyes with a tissue when she described me pointing my gun at her. Her father, the Attorney General, sat in the front row, watching me with cold satisfaction. My lawyer, Dave, put up a token defense, but it was useless. When it was time for the prosecution's closing arguments, the assistant AG strutted before the jury, his voice dripping with righteous fury. "This man, Frank Mulligan, is a disgrace to the badge he once wore." He was cut off by the courtroom doors swinging open. In walked Sarah, followed by 2 federal marshals. She held up a tablet, her face grim. "Your Honor, I have a motion to present new evidence in the interest of justice. Evidence the prosecution and the Attorney General himself have actively suppressed. The courtroom erupted. The judge hammered his gavel, but Sarah was already walking towards the witness stand, handing the tablet to the clerk. "This is unedited body cam footage from Officer Mulligan's device on the night of the incident," she announced, her voice ringing with clarity. The judge, intrigued and furious at the interruption, allowed it. On the large courtroom monitors, the scene played out exactly as I remembered it. The rain, the BMW, the dealer. But this time, the audio was crystal clear. You could hear Amelia Thorne asking, "Are you sure this is all of it?" You could see the dealer passing her a small plastic baggie, not a piece of paper. You could see her hand it back, saying, "No, my dad wants the uncut stuff. This looks stepped on." A collective gasp went through the courtroom. Amelia's face went white as a sheet. Thorne leaped to his feet, shouting, "This is inadmissible! This is a doctored video!" But the footage kept playing. It showed me approaching, shouting my commands. It showed her hand darting for her purse. And then came the part that sealed Thorne's fate. The camera captured the arrival of the black SUVs. It captured Thorne getting out of the car, walking past me and whispering, "You're done. You just aimed a gun at my daughter. Your life as you know it is over." And then, as the suits swarmed my car, my camera, still recording from my position on the curb, caught two of Thorne's men opening my trunk and planting the duffel bag of heroin inside. The silence was absolute. Thorne stood frozen, his face a grotesque mask of shock and rage. His daughter was openly weeping, not from fear, but from exposure. The jury stared, mouths agape, from the damning footage to the Attorney General and back again. The trap he had so perfectly constructed had just snapped shut on his own leg. The charges against me were dropped before the day was out. A federal investigation was launched into Robert Thorne for obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and conspiracy to plant evidence. He and his daughter were both arrested the next morning. My name was cleared, but something was broken. I didn't want the badge back. I had seen the other side of the thin blue line, how quickly it could be turned against you by the very system you swore to uphold. I walked out of the courthouse a free man, blinking in the bright sunlight. Sarah was waiting for me. "What now?" she asked. I looked back at the courthouse, at the crumbling facade of a corrupt empire. "Now," I said, a slow, tired smile spreading across my face. "I think I'll get some sleep."